Hello, everyone. I am Pantyhose King, and this is another episode of Tights Frame of Mind. This is so exciting is because we have an interview with the founder and CEO of Shapings.com, Robert Safko. Now, Robert is probably the most influential, most learned pantyhose person on the planet that I can think of, and I mean, that's including me. And you all know how I feel about myself. I'm very vain, very, very vain.
Boy, this is an episode. This is going inside, upside down, in and around world of manufacturing, making and selling pantyhose from someone who's got really beautiful websites. I just can't think of anyone else who knows as much about tights that we all love so much. All you need to do is sit back, relax, close your eyes, and have a listen to this pretty extraordinary insight.
And for those of you interested, we do have a Patreon, which will be the full and uncensored interview that we did with Robert. So if you want to get the whole kit and caboodle, and there is even more than the two-parter, sign up for our Patreon. You can also get other awesome prizes such as invitations to our Discord server, or even a chance to co-host the show with McSheer and I. So check it out if you love pantyhose, and I know you do. So without further ado, let's just get to the fascinating interview, and here he is, Robert Safko.
Hey Robert, how you doing?
Good, yourself?
Yeah, great. Just managed to get back from work on time for this awesome opportunity to talk to you.
Great.
Will you tell us the story about how Shapings came to be? What was its original form?
Well, back in 1995, my late wife, opened up a bra fitting shop just outside of Toronto, Canada. And the concept was to fit ladies in proper size, and using the size range of, not every woman's created equal. So the range of bras needed to be that wide as well. So, and then about 5 years later, this internet shopping thing was kind of introducing itself to the world. And with my little iMac, the first little translucent iMac.
The big one that was like a suitcase?
No, it was that translucent blue, with all the tangerine and all those other colors. So I just developed a website for this store and sold everything under the, a gamut of intimates, bras, shapewear, corsetry, hosiery, you name it, panties. But the only thing that was really being sold and purchased was, again, the pantyhose. So, and that's why the website is called Shapings.com, because it followed suit with the store name, which was named back in 1995 to fit women in their shapewear.
It's like, it feels like it still works, though. That's what's nice about it. Is like it still feels like it could have been. You would never know that it was. Originally.
No, it's not really exactly. It's like, well, what is Shapings? Well, it's tied towards women's shapewear and creating their silhouette. And that was the concept of the shop being opened. So as the hosiery was being sold year after year, we couldn't really change the name to be synonymous to hosiery or legwear because no one else would find it. So, but we were still selling items that, the panties, the shapewear, the corsets on the website too. It was just more prominently more hosiery. I would invite everyone to go to our YouTube channel, Shapings YouTube channel. We're at, I think, 56 million views throughout.
We'll put you in the show notes. That's pretty impressive.
Some videos are at 22 million views each video.
So they're doing poorly, is what you're saying. Well, 22 million. I mean, I'm sorry.
We don't take money from it. We're not monetized.
You don't get monetized?
No, I don't put an ad with an ad.
Well, I guess you don't really need to, because you think
I don't think our advertisements should be with another ad stuck to it.
You're right. That's a good point.
I want to respect our clients that go there and say, I just want to see your products. I don't want to sit there with a 30-second ad because you're making more money. I think it's the integrity.
Hey, you know what? That's why you are you. I mean, didn't I tell you, make sure he's like the pantyhose man? It's like, is there anybody who knows more about him?
You are the pantyhose man, but you're also like this sort of salesman, this scientist, this creator, this artist. There's all these versions of it, and which I'm completely gripped on. I'm like, You could
It's a
tell.
lot of it's a lot of area to cover. You're a very Renaissance man in every like sense of the word. Like I don't think they usually consider like engineering as part of Renaissance, even though it. If you were to say over, I guess your entire time doing this, what is the most successful style of pantyhose or hosiery that sells like throughout the years?
Well, definitely, I can't sell a pair of fishnets if I tried. Uh,
Amen.
and I think,
Yeah.
I think, well, we'd have to maybe step back and look at my customer base. About 85% of our customers, I should say 85% of our invoices have male names on them.
Did you say 85%?
That's what he did.
It could be even higher. Like I would joke with my current girlfriend that, hey, I got a female name on this list of orders today. So she,
That's outrageous. Sorry, I'm just trying to process that. There's 85% or more are male.
And I thought I was being crazy when I used to say, I bet if I, these pantyhose places, like, I bet 70% of sales is, and then it turns out like, boom. And I mean, and that makes sense. I feel like men might even be keeping the hosiery industry alive, at least in America. I don't know about the world, but in America, it certainly has taken a hit.
well, I just got back from an Italy trip and I went through many cities and towns in Italy. And, you'd sit at a cafe, you'd overlook the piazzas and you'd see the fashions because a lot of people going through Italy in those towns are from other places. They're not just Italians. So, and one thing we did notice was the army boot type of look and sheer black with
Oh, like Daria, like the '90s sort of
with
alternate.
with your feminine dresses and maybe a jean jacket over top or a leather coat, but it was always paired up with a feminine dress, sheer black, and the big honking thick army boot style shoes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was very prominent. And my girlfriend says, I got to get my teenage girl on this because my teenage daughter, because she's 15 years old and that type of fashion isn't over here in North America, but it was very prominent in Italy. And I took notice, but very few were in fishnets.
When I saw you shaking your head there, Robert, sorry to just jump back, when the king there said men are keeping the industry alive, were you sort of shaking, going, yeah, you might be right? Or were you shaking because you were going, I'm not sure?
Well, getting back to his question, I probably went a little too far with the fashion end of it, but the best item I would say would be between it's definitely sheer to waist and between your 5 denier and 40 denier. Uh, Selling opaques, it's a very small portion of our business, even though we have extremely well produced opaques, like they're just like velvet on your legs. They're uniform coloring, very clingy to the legs, microfibers, like 3D lycras. Like if you want to wear an opaque, these opaques are extremely well made. And even though we sell prominently, probably 80% below 40 denier.
What are some things like basic, the sort of things that people don't realize about how pantyhose are made that you would like to get out there, like misinformation that you often hear, things along those lines?
Yeah, exactly. I think some of the reviewers I could see online, especially young ladies that try to explain the basically try and review hosiery, but not knowing the technical aspects of what they're actually looking at. That kind of that's a pet peeve with me because if you're going to review something, you got to get down into the science of basically the textile that you're reviewing. And all pantyhose isn't created equal. Like they're just it's like fingerprints, right?
Right.
There's millions of them and not one's the same. And that's what the hosiery business and industry is all about. And it's like wine creation. Like every winery has their own formulas and recipes. So when you get into the actual fibers, it makes a difference to the overall feel and fit of what they're knitting. And what you're dealing with is a single fiber. And when you see that fiber, it could be a lycra fiber or a nylon fiber. You get into double covered lycra, people realize don't, well, what do you mean double covered lycra? You've got this rubbery based fiber that has extreme stretch to it on its own. That's like rubber. But when you have a nylon fiber, it's plastic. I don't know if you knew that. Like you can't stretch a nylon fiber.
Well, I've always been confused when people are like calling them nylons or they talk about nylon stockings. In various sort of industries, you'll find, oh, use the nylon casing, and you'll hold it. It's like this, like you just said, a hardened rubber. And in the back of my mind, I was always like, how the hell is this the same material as a pair of tights?
Well, nylon is nylon, and you can have a nylon bushing and used in industry. It's like a big hard piece of plastic, right? It's like a hockey puck. Well, you can't
Yeah.
sit there and stretch it unless you have, major hydraulics and tonnage behind it to stretch this thing. So the only way you could stretch nylon in that microscopic or hair-sized fiber is to twist it like a spring.
So that's done in the factory setting. Is there a universal setting for like manufacturing pantyhose in factories, or are they very different depending on what the you said recipe for them is, right?
Yeah, because if you can get into covered lycra, what you have is a single fiber of lycra, and then you got a nylon fiber that's twisting around it, right? And it does that so many times per linear measurement. Well, that's single covered lycra. And then you'd take another fiber of nylon and wrap it again the opposite way. That terminology is now double covered lycra.
The picture you're giving me is sort of like a DNA strand. I'm
Pretty
thinking
much.
about how tiny.
So they take that wound piece of yarn, I would say, or I should say fiber. Then they take that and they put it in a spool, and then they add other elements to the actual knitting machine. When you look at a knitting machine, you'll see on our YouTube channel that there's a process. You'll see all these rolls all being brought into this circular type needle centrifuge. And you've got, depending on the denier of the fiber, you can have up to 400 needles down to 200, depending on how thick you're blending. And it just grabs those little tiny filaments into a circular type tube, right? And that tube is then brought down in the middle of this knitting machine and then gets spat out every 10 minutes, depending on what you're knitting. Now that tube is like 6 to 7 feet long on its own, because it has to be spread apart to get the needles, or else it would just be bung up. So they take that tube, they can either stitch the two tubes together to make a pantyhose at the panty, or they can actually slide that tube over top of a board. Now that gets into another term, boarding. Okay, just think of a board shaped like a leg. All right. Back in the day, it used to be a wood board, and they'd shape the silk stocking, what have you, over top, and they'd steam it. And that would be called boarding, because they use a board shaped like a leg. The yarn would stretch over top of it, and then they'd go through a steamer. And what appears is a manipulated, you're steaming and pressing the shape of the leg into that circular tube that you just spat out. Okay, so
And isn't that what you said, that the reason like why pantyhose that aren't shaped towards the way feet are shaped makes for a less effective fit, right? Is that correct?
yeah, it's like you go in to buy some sports socks and you get, tube socks, or you get your formed sports sock that actually has a front and back to it. The heel's shaped, it just fits properly because you've got a right angle there where your heel is. So in order to put, basically a flat boarded hose is basically the same shape from the crotch to your foot. It's flat and it's square. Like nobody's legs are shaped that way. Okay, so you're going to get, in the higher end hose, you're going to get fully boarded hosiery, and that's what our descriptions usually have. It's either fully boarded or flat boarded. When it says flat boarded, you're going to get the tube sock look. Fully boarded is when you pull it out of the package and it's going to be the shape of the leg.
Presumably, they're more expensive.
Depends. Yeah, usually, but not as much as you think. But it's one thing that you should look for. And then the double covered or single covered lycra is another thing to really dive into to say, hey, this is going to give me uniform coloring. It's going to give me a better fit. It's not going to pull if I run my leg across something. These are the highest quality type of hose you can get is the covered lycra. You can even get them down to say a 5 denier, and you won't even notice that they're a blended yarn.
Wow.
Have you ever seen the film Inner? Have you ever seen Inner Space?
No.
There's a movie that came out in 1986 called Inner Space, where a guy gets shrank to the size of a atom and injected into the human body, and they explode. And I really want to be that guy going into this process and into a pair of tights, because it sounds. Can you imagine? Can you just imagine that?
It probably looks like the Matrix.
There's another concept too, is with the getting back to the fibers, is that I hear a lot of reviewers, say, well, it's got high lycra content, that's why it shines. It's like, no, you can have a very matte microfiber pantyhose that has an 8 denier. It looks like powder on your skin. It's makeup. It's very dull. It's matte with 40% lycra in it. Okay. The reason why it's matte is because the fibers are shaped as a circle. It diffuses the light. Usually shiny hose, the fibers are shaped like a prism, like a triangular type shape. So it refracts the light back out.
Now, see, my question to you is now you started the shop with your late wife, but you've become so worldly on it. I mean, did you have? I mean, I know that we talked in like that you also are aware, but did that go into sort of your ability to transition the store so easily? I mean, how did you become so learned? I mean, because I know you went to school for engineering, but you said not for the type of engineering that is for pantyhose making, correct?
That's right. Yeah, I went through civil engineering.
Building bridges, now building tights.
When did you realize that you were becoming this this expert?
Well, 27 years in the business, and again, going to visit these factories and talking with the technicians and talking with all these professional, textile people. You ask questions, you learn. It's just you're just filling your own database with what the process, from start to finish. Like these factories are sometimes you got 800 to 1,000 knitting machines in one room going. Like these are massive. They're like mini car factory, like from start to finish, and the machinery around. It's like, how can all these bulky, heavy, type steel machines put out this fine item? Like it's
Right.
They've got it down pat that, huge centrifugal washing machines, and it's a process, but they've got it down to, well, not to say there's no waste. Like the thinner the hose, the more waste. So if you get a thin hose, yes, the expense is on trying to knit this microscopic fiber without getting nicks or pulls or any type of needle catching. Like the Malaga 5 by Cecilia de Raphael is a 5 denier, and they were going to discontinue it because they had 40% waste during production.
Just load of ladders before they've even got them in the packet.
That's right. So they can't sell them. So when they throw them into their inspection department, there's another one, there's another one, there's another one. Oh, here's a good one. Because any pull or no one's going to accept that when they open a pair of hose. They're going to say this needs to be perfect. So the thinner denier hose is going to have more waste. So that adds to the cost.
I could think of a group of people who would be able to take the wasted ones, I guess.
What, you mean the Kingsters?
But like you said, we can get to that later.
You see that a lot in, say, the fully fashion industry, the fully fashion stockings like Geo of the UK. They have their imperfects. Like it's something that they sell off because they know that it takes a lot to produce a fully fashion stocking these days. Like those machines are still made on a 1950s style flatbed machine. And now you have to have technicians that actually know how to run that decade after decade. So that has to be passed on to someone that's actually interested in using a flatbed knitting machine and saying, hey, I want to learn this trade.
Well, I guess if any of our listeners are out of work at the minute.
Right? They're still trying to keep these things running because they're made on a flatbed type knitting machine, and they have to be sewn up the back. That's why a back seam was made in the first place. That was an actual seam to put this flat type of yarn together to make a pair of hose. That wasn't
That's
a,
mind blowing.
that was not a fashion thing. The seam had to be there.
That's so funny. I always assumed it was a fashion statement. Like,
No.
I guess they just hit it well.
Well, the fact is that they didn't have a circular knitting centrifugal knitting machine that to make a non-seam stocking back in the 40s. Like that came about later, and there was a huge big advertising campaign. These are seamless stockings. Can you imagine these days? These are seamless stockings. Well, yeah, they didn't have seamless stockings. That seam was sewn to close the stocking.
How then, thinking back to 19th century ballet dancers in Russia or European countries or whatever in the late 1800s in their sort of tights that were. I meant to bring this up when we did this history episode once, and we talked through time when they went from wool stockings to stockings into in the 1960s when we have pantyhose and all that. What? How did they make tights? Do you reckon, off the top of your head, or is that just am I going a bit off piece there?
Well, that's another. Yeah, it's you've got the history of pantyhose, but when you look back, even the Marilyn Monroe movies, and you had they were wearing their body suits or costumes, and the hose they actually did go all the way up, right? So that's one thing you actually want to dive into and say, wait a minute, was pantyhose really out there before the onset of the full-on? I forget the name of the gentleman that actually did. You touched on it before, but was it even before that? Did they knit the two stockings together for the high cut costumes?
Maybe for like expensive things, like for a Marilyn Monroe shoot or for a ballet, it was like they could afford to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I'm talking like nearly 60 years before Marilyn Monroe's time. You know what I'm talking about? There's black and white pictures from yeah, Russia's in my head like Tchaikovsky sort of era, and those ballerinas with leotards on, so you could see the top of their thigh was covered in tights. It wasn't like they were. So that's what. Maybe they were footless though.
Yeah, it's an interesting when you go back in history and look at the photos, even if you go back to the 1500s, or even in Italy when we see
The paintings of the legs.
and they even have their ceremonies, and you got the drums and the trumpets, and they come out, and these Siena has one in the piazza, and they come out in their costumes, and the guys in their short medieval type costumes, and the tights all went up. It's like, well, they're emulating and copying what it was 500 years ago. So did those tights go all the way up to make one piece, or were they just up and then they had some kind of attachment on each top of on the legs? So
Yeah, there's no documentation of that. There's no painting of somebody like taking their stuff off and being like, or casual
Attaching the
like
first
"Whoa."
suspender belt.
but they all had seams because they didn't develop the circular type knitting machine.
Yeah.
That came out in the 50s, and that was a big thing to get rid of the back seam. So right now we have a back seam pantyhose. Well, it's fashion, but you're backtracking to the retro style of the back seam stocking, which you needed the seam. So it's both a fashion, but it's a retro type throwback.
Where does the control top look come in the sort of more recent contemporary pantyhose? Because is it a really new phenomenon that they managed to create the sheer to waist or all the way seamless all the way up without the control top?
Well, sheer to waist will give you. See, most of the hose we sell is sheer to waist. I can hardly sell a control top, to be honest. And you'd think with the onset of Spanx and all this control garments, and yeah, it's control tops is probably 1% of our business.
What's the control top then that you do sell that you see selling regularly, if you do sell them?
It's usually a very thick, very controlling. Like a lady needs to have a night out. She really needs to have her tummy not sucked into the point of
sausage casing
in there, right? But like, let's face it, it's a thin material. It has a very buildup of lycra. It's thicker. It has that ability to hold, a softer tissue like your stomach, and it just gives you a little bit more of a smooth line under a type of softer dress that you want.
Mm-hmm.
And the control top acts as your panty. You don't have to double up and say, I want to wear another panty. This is a smooth look to bring a smooth look to your outerwear. So the control top pantyhose is to give you your leg covering, your makeup, and to give your tummy a bit of control. Back in the day, or I should say, a lot of ladies, they would contact me and say, I want control top. I says, okay, do you need, tummy control? You need the silhouette control? I said, no, I just want the hose to stay up. And I'm like, well, then you're not wearing good hose, because a good sheer waist with covered lycra, once you get them in position, they're going to be part of you for the whole day.
Yeah.
Right.
Huh.
So if you wear the cheaper brands, of course, they're going to slide down, they're going to sag. You're going to need the control top to keep them basically a tummy garter.
Speaking of, now I shouldn't say cheap brands, but I guess I'm gonna say, like, what's happening with China? What's there? It seems to be an explosion of hosiery from China. Why is that happening? And I mean, what's the cause of that? Do we know?
Well, they do have a wide population, and they do have hosiery manufacturers over there. So it's a matter of them saying, hey, there's a market over here in North America. The internet is very powerful.
So it's the internet, really, you think, that maybe spotlit it and not?
Yeah, I could pinpoint a Chinese made hose just by pulling it out of the package. So I could see the type of yarn. I could see that the dye is coming off on your fingers. They're they're not.
Every time I order some, and I get so, I'm sorry because I know we don't know each other, Robert. If I'm leaning into an area that's too crude for too soon, but when I order them, it's always at a time when it's going to be fun and we can get them in. And when they arrive really quickly and they're made in China, they're terrible and they're so disappointing compared to the picture. Sorry to interject with that, but is that what you were about to say?
Yeah, I've heard of other brands that I don't want to mention them, but they've sent me samples, and as soon as I pull them out and throw them, slide them over my hands, like, yeah, this is Chinese made. I could tell. And then you go back to the supplier and says, where are these actually made? And of course, yeah, it's China. It's like, yeah, bingo. Like
Yep.
it's not something we want to. I'm not going to disrespect the European factories, because they've put their heart and soul into the R&D, and again, their environmental practices, they're all ISO 9001 approved. They got extremely high-end type of environmental control with their dyeing. All their waste material goes into a very closed system, so it comes out clean water. Like,
Other than Italy, like, what other places that in Europe are particularly good? Because I thought it was kind of just Italy and Germany, really.
German, well, we know Austria, Wolford's from Austria. But there's one thing about Wolford I want to just touch on is, probably, it's a higher price, it's a higher end hose, but 20 years ago, 30 years ago, they had the ability to bring in those yarns in those knitting machines, by which of course are made in Italy. Most of the knitting machines are Italian made. And they bring that to Austria, they develop their yarns and such, and they say, okay, we're going to charge 3 times as much for this hose. 20, 30 years ago, yeah, it's a bona fide difference. But companies like Omero, Pierre Manteau, Sylvia Grande, Oro Blue, all these companies have almost reached that level of quality in a very wide variety of yarns, to the point where, do I need to spend 3 times as much to get maybe 10% of a better experience out of the hose? And most people, when they have a pair of Wolfords in their drawers, like, I don't want to wear them because I don't want to ruin them. Well, why'd you buy them? Enjoy them. This is why you have them. So I get a lot of people saying, well, get into Wolford, but I don't really want to wear them because I want to ruin them. But there's other manufacturers that are up to those standards and produce phenomenal hose. It's just a discovering.
What's a good, like, and not say, if somebody were to get a pair that was like Wolford-esque, I mean, what would be a suggestion for you, that you, maybe one that you sell that is, that you would say is an equivalent to either the satin 20s or the 40 neons?
Well, the neon 40s, I'm not really a big fan of them because to me they look like a dancer's tight. They're very like comparable to say someone out in the figure skating world, and they're very thick and they're almost like a thick opaque legging for what I've seen. But um, 20 denier, you get into say the Lucido 20s by Sylvia Grande. The Oral Blue Maggie 20s are very high quality. Trasparenze, Bridget 20s, Rubino 22s by Sylvia Grande, or sorry, CDR, which have now discontinued. Eterno 20 Lucidos by CDR. You're going to get into that high shine type of sparkle look in a 20 denier. So there's a difference between sparkle shine and then glossy shine. Okay.
What is the difference between that?
Well, take a pair of glossy hose outside, you're going to see that very sharp shine line down your leg. If you go outside, a sparkle shine, you're going to see the thing light up like a Christmas tree. So, and glossy is more like you just slathered your skin in oil.
Right.
Okay.
So in the manufacturing thing, because you were mentioning that the reason why, like we talked about how we felt like the PV Hooters pantyhose were not comfortable, and you gave an interesting anecdote about why that is. I was wondering if you could tell that story.
Well, the PV hose is a very interesting anomaly. It's for I call it it's the shiny hose for the uneducated, and it's more of an American type of, hey, this Hooters girl is wearing this basically, you know, you get it out of a vending machine type of pantyhose because she has to wear them. Who knows if the owners of Hooters got a hold of some shiny hose back in the day when they opened up, say, hey, these look okay, these are cheap. Here, ladies, wear them. There was no thought process into saying, hey, this is going to be a phenomenon of Hooters pantyhose. It's just PV got in there. The PV hose, not to like, yes, they're producing them, but for what I compare with what we sell, I'd wrap my potatoes in them. Like I've heard it, they're scratchy, they sag, they're not like if these Hooter girls were to get in these European hose, I think their tips would double.
Right. And probably they would be a lot more comfortable at work, you'd think.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I've had one Las Vegas waitress for years buy our stuff, and she says I would get more tips by wearing your hose just because the look of my legs walking into the casinos.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
Yeah, and women don't understand that. It's like most men walking into Hooters, they're not looking at the Hooters per se. If we can get
Mm-hmm.
right, because they just want to see young women in hosiery, and many of my customers have stated that. So, yeah, I just go in there, look at the hosed legs because they don't see it anywhere else. In Florida, how many young girls were wearing pantyhose? But you could pretty much 100% bet you walk into a Hooters in Florida, you're going to see a young lady.
I think right now, if I walk around town, I'm the only one wearing pantyhose openly in town. It's like, but at Hooters, that's true. That is the only place that you can go to sort of get that eye candy fix. I wanted to also talk about the Platino clean cut situation. That story that you told me. I loved that. What people don't know is that you are an influencer to the point where you go in there and you can actually get things set off into manufacturing. So the clean cuts, the Platino clean cuts went away, and it was what was the story behind that again? The factory closed and a recipe was lost, right?
Yeah, Platino was never made by a Platino factory. It was actually made by Doosan. And we still have some of those styles on our website. And that is the factory that closed down. They used to make clothing, medical supplies, medical wear in hosiery. It was a very large factory, about 2 hours south of Barcelona. And the Chinese market just was too strong that they had to close down. They couldn't compete with their other lines of products that they produced. And so along with that closure of Ducen, I was actually at that factory. And when I was going through it, I was looking around thinking, this doesn't look right. So it was about 4 months before they actually shut down. Things just didn't look right to me, like this was in full production. So I think they were winding down when I actually had my last visit there. And the clean cut was produced by Ducen, as along with all the other Platino products. So the director of Platino was left with all these beautiful styles, but no one to make them. So there was about a 6 to 8 month, I call it the dark ages of Platino, because there was nothing coming in. Whatever inventory was there, that's what was being sold. So there was a bit of a scramble on their part to actually produce anything that was representative of what they had before. So the clean cut formula was lost in that shutdown of that factory. Who knows if it was the type of knitting machines? It was basically the chef was gone and we can't reproduce this. God help me, I was on the phone and on emails. Can you just, whatever you could do, make the clean cut, make the clean cut, make the clean cut. And then what they said, we've got it. They sent a sample and it was nowhere close to it. Yes, it was a glossy shine. It had the laser cut waistband, but it wasn't that slick type of nylon-y type look that we all loved with the original clean cut.
Sorry, can I just ask what clean cut is, just to clarify? Clean cut means same as sheer to waist, or have I?
Well, the clean cut is they actually have a fiber, and they've introduced it's called fusion, and then the fusion yarn was introduced into this pantyhose, and then they had the ability to slice the top off of the hose without it fraying. So when you get a pair of clean cuts, you're going to see the top of it. It's as thin as the leg. There's no waistband. That's where the clean cut name came about, is that the waistband is not there. It's as thin as the leg yarn.
Got you. Gosh. Okay. Thank you. Sorry, I just wanted to clarify, just because I'd missed that
And
point.
the actual machine, when you actually saw it in the factory, they actually put it. There was actually a machine developed. It's like one big bread slicer or paper slicer. They actually stacked the hose in about 15 or 20 pairs, and this slicer would come down and slice the top of them off.
Like a guillotine.
We still have in stock the clean cut, original clean cut knee highs. So if you want to get a feel of what the original clean cut is, we still have the original clean cut knee highs in stock in one color.
I'm gonna buy a pair just to
Yeah, right.
see,
Right?
just to get a handle
People
on
don't realize that that is what the original one felt. So if you missed out on the original clean cuts, I still have knee highs in stock that you can buy.
I think you got a couple of customers right now.
So you can't buy clean cut tights or pantyhose anymore. It's only
you
the
can,
stockings.
but it's not the original formula.
Got you.
It's the new Coke.
The new chef.
So years went by, and then I find there was a very ambitious export manager with CDR, and I presented it, the clean cut. I says, can you take this and copy it? And there is a way of technicians to look at the yarn and actually copy the recipe if they really wanted to. It's just a matter of locating a specific yarn type and actually diving into the technical aspects of that yarn to actually reproduce it. So about 4 or 5 months later, we had a photo shoot in Italy, and the director of CDR visited us, and he pulls out this sample. And I almost fell over. I said, this is like identical to the clean cut, and that what basically was born was the Eternal 15s.
Do you have a favorite pair of that you like to wear specifically? What's your favorite?
Well, I don't particularly wear. It's just I've had varicose veins when I was 30, and I had to wear waist-high medical grade compression hosiery.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another part of the industry that men sort of get the short end of the stick with, because I actually brought this up with the director of Omero, which they produce Segreta compression hosiery as well in Italy. Men's basic hosiery stops below the knee, right?
Mm-hmm.
No matter what it is,
Mm-hmm.
dress socks, wool socks, construction socks, and even compression.
Long haul flight socks.
Right. So I never understood why the gender role of hosiery stopped below and above the knee. I don't understand how men's hosiery can't cover the knee without it becoming a female product.
This is something we have like gone round the ring around for all sorts of reasons, but not around the ring, but we've gone around the block with this conversation. It's got to be something just about culture, right? And the world's back to gender roles, not just gender clothing, but gender clothing because we're talking about an item of clothing, but gender
Yeah,
roles and what it means and this sort of fear of femininity. Somehow, it's more complex than that. But do you know what I'm saying,
there
Robert?
is
Do
a
you agree?
fear, I think, of appearing that way. I think.
But there's something less feminine about stockings that come up to where a football sock comes up to, and for some reason, this item of clothing has got the brunt of gender stereotypes.
Well, yeah, any type of clothing on a man has to be woolly, it has to be thick, it has to be bally, it has to be, the big thick yarns in order to be masculine. Anything thinner, anything that shows skin through it, then now you're getting into the female entity. But still, when you look back at, say, some of the older interviews, say, Dean Martin, and they're sitting there with, Johnny Carson, they lift their leg, you could start to see the sheer men's dress socks, right? So there was that type of fashion back then, and the gentlemen wore your sheer dress socks, and they were nylon. So, but they never went past the knee. And you'd have your dress sock garters, the men's sock garters, right?
This is so in keeping with, like you said right at the beginning, about these proportions of your customers are in male names. So that could also include for medical reasons. It could also be the traditionally talking quite old school now, but where people maybe the guys are just buying them online because that's the account registered in the house for that thing. So even if women are buying it, they're buying it through their male partner's bank account.
Yeah,
Am I talking crap?
I've never
Do you think I'm
sat there
talking?
and interviewed my customers to say, "Hey, are these for you?" Or like that. We run a very private type of boutique, and even our packaging is very private, so it's not logo intent.
But the sizing is really where you can get an idea, right? Is if like
Yeah, we do sell probably 60 to 70% on the larger sizes. Like,
But I guess what I was just trying to get your. It doesn't even have to be accurate if you don't know, but do you. Those sort of things are just bounded around. Do you still think, even with those in mind, that men are buying them for themselves in secret?
well, I do get a gauge for that on our forum. So we do have a forum on our website, and you do see a lot of male influence on that forum and a lot of male wearers. So yeah, I would say it was a high percentage. And there are orders with small sizes and large sizes on the same order.
well,
So
that means that there's a couple that's having some fun. Uh, I mean, more than like, yeah.
So,
and then the
so
customers
how.
that actually call in and talk to you. So you get a gauge of who they're buying it for. So.
And what are your feelings towards them being a sexy item? And I don't just mean cool, beautiful to look at sitting around in Italy observing fashion. I imagine you've got an interest in that just because of your line of work. But when did you sort of start becoming aware that there was this fierce, addicted obsession out there for, well, cross dressing in them? Or did you know that?
Well, I used to take part in a lot of, I guess, transgender type conventions in the States. I was invited to set up booths and get into the corsetry and the shapewear end of it and the hosiery. So I did see that, you get 600 or 700, I guess, cross dressers, transgender people walking around the hotel, and I would never see them in bare legs. So it was part of their dress. It was the completed outfit. And I did notice that they took very good care in their appearance, like more so than the women walking around. Like they were just done up and they made it happen. But again, it takes a lot of time to present yourself in hair and makeup and the full kit and caboodle. So
Yeah, and when it's not your norm, it becomes more something you cherish more, I guess, and especially going to a convention. I imagine if you're not, well, if you're not cis female, it's gender female. Correct me if I'm getting that right, King. But if you're a cross-dresser or transgender or someone who it's sort of special for you, you want to get it perfect, and it's such a special occasion because you don't really ever get to do it. It's quite a remarkable, nuance and unique thing. So I can imagine that all these people you've seen taking care, it makes a lot of sense.
Well, I think even the ritual of sitting down and taking a pair of sheer hose, you've got the fear of putting your nail through it, and like women these days are on the go. They have their own wardrobe type sense, and maybe it is the sign of the times that I just don't want to deal with sliding a pair of this fragile material that's just going to last the night. So the sexiness of it, say, well, my legs are just as good as putting a pair of hose on, but you put a nice black cocktail dress and a pair of 8 denier ultra shears, and you sit at a bar with your legs hanging out, you're going to get drinks bought to you all night.
I know that's true.
There's actually a study. Men, when they see a woman first, and women don't realize this, they start at the feet and they work their way up.
That's how you check someone out. You do the once over like that. You go boom.
Right.
Is that the same back the other way? They like look at me walking around in my muddy trainers and.
Right.
I think men look at the same way. I know that gay men do the same. We do the bottom up.
And even with when you get back to the sexiness of it, you could walk into a room, but if you walk out and people notice you have a pair of back seams, it's like, why didn't I talk to that lady? What's up? What's going on with her? I didn't like that one back seam already turns a lady into, oh my God, I want to get to know her because that back seam is
a choice, right?
Yeah, it's almost vampy now. Back in the 40s, 50s, every teenage, daughter out there couldn't wait to get in her mom's fully fashioned stockings. But you walk into church or any other venue and somebody's wearing a pair of 1950s style back seam stockings, you're thinking, is she some part of a, sex cult or something? Like,
she's like some sort of like musician or some sort of like performer,
right.
Because it's a very costume.
So what happened in 70 years from something that was like, you passed down to your, it was like a passage into adulthood for your daughter to wear these back seam stockings. But now you give a pair of back seam stockings to your 18-year-old daughter, it's almost like child abuse. It's like, why are you dressing your daughter into this sex item?
Can you imagine getting a pair of that from your parents and be like, oh, this is just a great present. Thank you so much.
Well, it's a passage to adulthood. All of a sudden, hey, I could wear my mom's adult stockings now.
Yeah, well, I don't want to know if I can get my mom's. I don't think. Well, first of all, I'm not the same size as my mom's, but also there's because a lot of times like the guys right there like, when did you first wear? And I'm like, okay, I was 9, and they're like, was it your mom's? And I'm like, I'm not really digging where this conversation's going. Like, let's back it away from that one. But it's interesting that I feel like things are coming around with women wearing again. I'm seeing more, kind of at least in fashion. It's starting to pop back up. And
you must have seen in Europe, and I can tell definitely in London and the rest of the UK, they're hugely popular.
They are, and another thing we notice is that women are a little bit more conscientious with their full wardrobe. Like there's a lot more coordination of everything. It's something they take time in, and when they're out in public, they want to look good. Like I didn't see any European ladies that should be walking around in Walmart. Like it's, there was no baggy legging, track pants, kind of oversized sweatshirts, and what you see out there. They wanted to look good, and it was very noticeable. And even my girlfriend was like, "Man, this is like a fashion show here." And if you want to be stealthy, shave your legs, wax them, put on a pair of Divine, and you're going to be so stealthy out there. No one's going to notice you got hose on.
That's we should do some sort of challenge McSheer on that. We should get like microfiber stuff and see like, does anyone notice?
Because it gives you a texture of skin. It's going to beautify your legs, and it's going to not shine. So it's going to be a matte finish. So you're not susceptible to that, oh, look at that shiny leg on, right? So most hose shine. It's just a matter of having that the powder effect in the shape of the yarn that doesn't give you that satin fit finish. So, and the other thing with microfiber, you got to get them on right at the beginning. And I recommend a pair of dishwashing gloves.
Oh, you mean the first time you put them on, that you should put them on right because you can sort of misshape them or
Yes,
mismold them, sort of thing.
dishwashing with the grippy palms. Any type of rubber type grippy palm gloves, don't use them to put them on, use them to adjust after.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh,
wow. That makes sense.
Right.
this is going to be
I
fun.
see a lot of women on the reviews sitting there with a pair of very ultra sheer hose, and they're sitting there with their fingernails, and they're trying to adjust it and doing all this. It's not going to happen. They are part of your skin. Don't worry about if you don't get it all up to your hips and your waist. Who cares? You take the rubber gloves afterwards. Just get the waistband over your butt. All right. Who cares if the crotch is 2 or 3 inches sagging? Take the rubber gloves, start from your toes, get a little bit of wiggle room at your toes so your toes aren't busting through. Stretch that yarn uniformly all around your feet. You might feel the twist. It's only you that know how things are feeling on your skin, right? You can have a little twist, foot's not fitting properly. You adjust it right from the feet all the way up, inch by inch by inch by inch, up to your crotch, over the hips. And a good quality hose is going to be with you all day long. And it's the matter of getting them on properly at the get-go that's going to make that hose feel great.
Not a pair that you want to be putting on in a rush if you're one of those guys that.
Well, but it works. It works with any type of yarn. It works with any type of hose, but mainly the microfibers and especially with the seamless.
You mentioned earlier about your girlfriend.
Mhm.
Did I hear that right?
Yes.
Do you mind? What was it like the first time she asked you what you did for a living? What was the conversation like? How did it go? And what, like, did she care? Was she interested? I'm
Well,
curious to
not to
know.
get too personal, but we did meet online. It's very difficult. I'm still raising 3 boys, and I don't go out to the meeting places that especially my age, you're not into clubs and such. So when we first talked, she thought I was like, I don't. I discovered that type of, I guess, career would scare a lot of women over the conversations I've had. So I tread it lightly, and I got more onto construction and renovating because I still have that background. And she was doing that with her house, and I actually came out and said, "This is what I do," and she was like a little confused. It's like, well, how you tie that in with your renovating work and construction, and it took a bit to actually have her sink in to what my business was all about, and a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of, by the time I met up with her, I just don't invite her to the warehouse and show her everything. I got to, develop a relationship here before I make that step. So there was a lot of selling of the whole industry and why it's out there and the background of how I started. So a lot of long talks.
Isn't
Wow.
that fascinating that even have I mean, you started a company that became incredibly successful. One would think that that would be alone enough, you know what I'm saying? Like that usually is a sign to,
Yeah,
go with them.
I was
But it's
just to get
interesting.
back, like not to interrupt, but one woman I was texting, and she wouldn't believe me. She says, I got to get off this online stuff. This is too creepy. I can't take this. You're what is this? Yeah,
She
it was kind of.
she
She wouldn't believe me what I was telling her.
but she accused you of being creepy.
Yeah,
Was
yeah, I was part of a man selling pantyhose, and she couldn't.
Oh my God. It's
But there is something about our culture. We're not allowed near them, and that's why it's weird. Like, it's somehow more acceptable if you just said, "Oh, I do women's underwear or women's shoes." It's somehow it feels like it would be easier to be accepted for some reason. This item of clothing is particularly like forbidden fruits for us guys, right?
It's interesting when you actually go to Europe and you talk with the heads of the companies. They're men. You look at the floor of the knitting rooms. They're all men technicians. You look at the dyeing area, and they're all men working on the formulas and manning the machines. You only find the women in the knitting, so they sew the pieces together, and the packaging.
And the modelling, presumably.
Yeah, you even have men designers, but it's prominently run by men that are textile technicians. So, but when it comes to the retail end of it, do you have to be female then? Like,
It's weird.
it's just another product that you're marketing, and
Yeah, it shouldn't matter. I don't give a shit who the sex or the gender of whatever company it is that I'm buying anything from. I mean, I could give a rat's
well,
ass. It's inconsequential.
we get customers saying, "Oh, I'd love to work in your warehouse." This is well, it's just cardboard boxes and a lot of shelves.
I
We
think
don't
everyone
have
imagines it's a little bit like a RuPaul's dressing room.
yeah
They imagine it's like
we
a
don't have
pantyhose
pantyhose
wonderland.
models walking down the aisles plucking your orders.
They're like, yeah, they come up, they're like walking up and like,
The glamorous part of the company is the photo shoots, and
which you do.
yes, I do myself. All my photos are edited, shot. All the photo shoots are pretty put together by myself. I do the lighting. We use very high end photography equipment, Hasselblad digital. All right. So we were talking 50 megapixels at raw images. Like these are 120 megabytes a shot. Okay. So I could take a full body shot and zoom in to count the fibers on the legs, right?
That's why the photos look so good then.
So it's a whole different concept of marketing. It's like I want to make these products look non-utilitarian.
What's utilitarian? Sorry.
It's something that I see a lot of these startup companies like SheerTex and all these other micro niche type hosiery manufacturers that, or I should say, they just put a blank mannequin woman standing in this blank type of setting. Here's your underwear, right?
Got you. Your high end, your sophistication, and
I want to put a story behind each pair of hose. It's like, why do I need to wear an 8 denier hose? Well, I'm going to pair that up with a nice cocktail dress and say, hey, ladies, this is why you need to wear a 5 denier ultra sheer instead of just having it on some plain mannequin leg in a blank backdrop. Like you have to tell a story if someone's buying it 3,000 miles away from you. You have to say, why am I wearing this? Why am I buying it? I want to look like that. I want to educate the full functionality of that pantyhose that you're buying.
Do you think that they're ever, because I have modeled pantyhose, believe it or not, for a Chinese company. Do you think there ever is a time where these companies are going to say, hey, maybe we throw in a male model here and there in order to start, acknowledging the customer base? Because I mean, they have to be aware that this is happening. Is that something you see ever being, possible, or is it gonna continue to sort of be like a sort of hush hush thing?
Well, about 10 years ago, the company Gerb,
Mm-hmm.
people pronounce it Gerby, but it's actually Gerb of France. They started back in the early 1900s producing hosiery, and they just went out of business a few years ago because of the market. But they developed a whole line for men.
Yes, but I mean, it's nice that it's wonderful that happened, and we all know that very well. But I mean, like just peopling it in photographs, I wonder even if with like the existing brands, like not just one that is entirely devoted to men, but just like showing that there are men who buy, quote unquote, the women's pantyhose and wear them as men. Is that something that the industry is ever going to acknowledge?
Well, I think most of the industry is focused on the female aspect because they've been doing it for decades. Now, for a man to see, marketing is all about sales. If you saw a woman wearing pantyhose and you're actually a man that's shopping for hose, is the male model going to attract you with that male image wearing that product? That's an interesting way of
it's a
looking.
very good point that from a marketing point of view, King, because this is where
you're already sold on the item. You're already sold that I'm going to
Yeah.
buying pantyhose. It's just a matter of I need to see it on somebody's legs. I need to see the finish. Is the man going to buy that product more seeing a man in it? That's the one thing you actually have to study. And then
the gay and bisexuals, I will say, but I mean, I could speaking from my own like personal like things is yes, it would do that for me. I think I would even become brand loyal to the like featuring of that, and it wouldn't even have to be necessarily that the hose is good. It's just the there is a power to the acknowledgement
Okay,
of it, you know.
that's interesting. I would have to develop a photo shoot that would be as high quality and respectful to what I shoot with the women. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's, and I think you could. I mean, even if it's done where it's sort of done where you have them like sitting at a table, or you know, like having like you know, like some sort of like thing together, or you know, because even that kind of stuff, as you know, a man who wears that, you know, is also attracted to men. Even when we're thrown that bone, it's something that is at least, well, hey, it's at least taking away the stigma of this is something that is, you know, freakish. And I don't know, what do you think, McSheer? I mean, would you find that, I know that that's not how you wear, but what would your impressions be if you saw that kind of advertisement?
Well, this. So I'll answer that question directly, but I was just listening to you guys talk there, and it threw up a whole lot. I mean, there's so many things that you could chew on over there. But in terms of if I saw that time of advertisement, like Robert said, I'd never even thought this before. But would I be drawn to buy them more? To be honest, I don't know if I would, because part of who I am and my reason for being so passionate about them is drawn to my obsession with femininity overall. And Robert said something there about whether I do or don't look like it, when I'm wearing and when I'm doing my thing, it's hoping I look like those classic images on the front of the packaging of tights. The reason I said there was a lot to unpick is I wondered if what you're saying, that if I saw it being advertised, or you could go down the men's clothes aisle and there was also tights there, that would just be cool because you'd be like, oh my god, this is a breath of fresh air. I don't know if I would be drawn to buy them anymore because, as he said, it's like I already want to desperately. I love the sophisticated packaging. I think I'd be more. I think I'd just be more. I'd be really pleased to see it, but I wouldn't be more drawn to buy them personally. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
But I'm saying these are pantyhose you buy already. You know what I'm saying? Like these are pre-existing brands.
Yeah, I think it was cool, and I would, I would, I would definitely buy them.
So you wouldn't stop buying them, is what I'm
no,
saying.
I wouldn't stop buying them at all. Oh no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I would be. I think in the same way that we've talked about in society, women having to be so perfect looking for modelling and stuff. It would the guy wearing them for me would have to he couldn't have hairy legs. And I think
nobody should. Yes, obviously.
Yeah, but there'll be some people who are men who wear hose that aren't cross dressers, just like wearing hose and like wearing hairy legs. We know they exist. So what do we do for them? Do they have their own advertising with hairs poking through?
We tell them they have to go out into the woods until they realize that they are wrong. I'm just kidding.
Then we're being exactly the same as all those companies. Yeah, I know. I tease,
but you know, like they are a niche inside a niche. I can tell you.
Do you think it's dodgy territory to start thinking about the world of sex and fetish and the garment?
well, I think it's part and parcel. I think a manufacturer is going to spit out sexy looking hose for a fashion entity, a back seam or lace or even crotchless. Like I just got a report from CDR last week, and their biggest selling item right now is the vidrio crotchless. Okay. And that was actually developed, the back end story of that, there was a Russian retailer that just needed some crotchless hose. They spit out like 500 of the vidrio without crotch. And that same export manager came to me and says, hey, I got some leftover here. You want to, throw it on the website? I said, sure. So it wasn't until I threw it on my website that it actually caught on and became extremely popular. And then they started adding more colors, and now they're adding more colors as we speak. So I think they're up to 12 colors just in the crotchless hose, where before they only had 3.
Wow, so, there we go.
So,
sex.
So, but it could be hygienic reasons. It could be people just don't want the crotch. There's a lot of women that just wear panties underneath their hose. They just don't want to double up on the crotch, and they keep it open and such.
But do we really think it's that? I mean, if we, do you think it's hygiene, or do you think it might just be for a little nookie?
I think it's both. I think yes, there's couples that get into that whole realm of fetish, but for a company, a mainstream company, to advertise it as a sexual fetish item, I think they're gonna just leave it up to the customer to say, hey, we're producing this, go at it. it's
I see. I gotcha. Yeah. So the making a subsidiary and sort of doing it through that would be something that would be
because they are in retail stores, they are in department stores over there. They're not gonna, they're not in type
danger.
of, they're
Yeah.
not in sex toy sections only. It's something that they actually have to show with kids walking by a hosiery aisle. And
I say, well, back when you were starting out in the underwear generally, and bras and the other bits, did you honestly then, was it not until that you started seeing the sales of hose going up? Did you never before then have an interest in them?
well, I always liked the complete leg look. I always was interested in seeing women's hosiery on women, and I just wanted to. Once the store developed, yeah, we I wanted to bring in nicer brands that I knew of, going in.
Was it easy to communicating that to your colleagues and the people you worked with? That were you having to, were they sort of judging you for going what's, or did they just see the figures? I guess, and from a work point of view.
Well, that's just it. We're looking at what the sales are coming in, and it's like, wait a minute, we got to bulk up on our orders here from our for suppliers. Like we didn't import back in the early days, back in the 2000 when we opened up our website. We're one of the very few first ones out there. Like beyond 2000, there was not many websites to buy hosiery from, and the buying of hosiery online was a tough sell to some of these companies. When I discovered CDR back in 2005, I was in Lyon, France at one of the lingerie conventions. I'd walk by, saw the booth, walked by again because all I saw was fashion items. I wasn't too concerned about the fashion. And I dropped in and at the last day and I says, well, do you guys make basics? And they pulled out this cardboard box out of the booth closet and they were pulling out all these styles that we know of. I'm like, my God, where have you been? So they didn't even realize there was an internet-based type venue or market. They didn't even export out of Spain back then.
You were really the first
Yeah, I was the first one to
to
throw them online, and then
that's nuts. I mean, it's so forward thinking and just like in our community legendary, it's like
Full of Switzerland. I met them in 2002 in Stuttgart, Germany. They had a representative out of Switzerland. They're no more the brand, but there was extremely high end Swiss hope.
Oh, yeah, they were good.
They were
They
they,
were.
they were like even higher than Wolford. They were like Swiss chocolate, the pantyhose, right? And we were the only ones that sold them online, and they were scratching their heads like people buy them online. It's like, oh my God, like the whole concept. Even the Italian brands, they didn't realize that people bought them. They were always stuck to the department stores and boutiques, and that brings us to the photography that we developed. And our first photo shoot was back in 2004 because I was just getting too frustrated on the availability of marketing. And they were marketing for the department stores. That's why the packages were bland. They were cartoonish. They were because people could go in there, they could put their hands in the swatches, they could feel the hose, they could get a sense of what they're buying on hand. But someone in Japan trying to look at this brand says, I don't know what this looks like. Look at this boring package. It looks like a cartoon or a silhouette of a drawn leg. It's like, how do you sell something like that? So that's when the photography started. I bought my first little digital Sony camera and backdrop, and the rest is history.
Are they hosiery models? Like you get hand models and butt models, or do you just do a casting session every time you got a new brand to?
Well, we look at their portfolio. I don't go through an agency because as soon as you tell them it's underwear, they're going to triple the cost. And I could find a lot of girls out there on their own profiles, especially Italy. We do the trips to Italy because the caliber of models are that much higher, and for the money. It's the North American models, they have a bit of a chip on their shoulder. Oh, like one model out of Toronto. She was okay, and she said, I want $1,000 a day. Really? Do you think you're worth $1,000 a day? And then I would email back and say, no, we're not really, that's above the budget, what we're used to. And not to get too much into the business. It's like, well, oh, no, no, I'll do it for cheaper. It's like, well, maybe you should offer it, but it's one of those, course, they have to have nice legs, and I don't generally have women with tattoos. It makes it a little bit less. It's confusing.
It's not a good look. It isn't.
Oh, I think it's a great look, but I can see why you wouldn't use it for general marketing. But there is a beauty.
I mean,
to it.
but yeah, but it has to be a really nice tattoo, and at the same, I don't know.
True,
I mean, it's just sort of like tattoos are very subjective.
And the
you know what I mean?
perfect denier as well.
I had a model, and she didn't tell me she had a dragon up the side of her leg, and that was a Photoshop nightmare trying to.
Oh, yikes!
Yeah,
Yikes in a way.
a few
Yeah,
layers,
that's
a few layers going on in that column.
But
a lot of
See the
sampling.
night, the hours of the night going away. 4 in the morning, you're still scrubbing out bits of blue.
one more aspect of the portraying of the photos is that there's a lot of hidden gems on our website. Like there's items on our website that people don't even realize that are fantastic. And I look at the sales, it's like, why are people buying this? Well, and the thing is that each product is wearable. I go through each product and scrutinize each one. Is like I get samples from every company and say, this is not good. I'm not putting this on. And it becomes discontinued because it's just poor sales. But I could tell that they're not going to, whatever I put on our website is wearable and it looks good. It's something that a woman is going to enjoy. A man's going to enjoy wear it. Because let's face it, there's so much out there. There's so many websites out there that put everything on there. And I look at some of these products and it's like, why are you putting this stuff on? Is it to fill your website? Is it to make you look like you're the biggest in the world?
It's like they're trying to be Amazon
Exactly.
of,
And like our return rate is down to like maybe a package or two a month. And it's not because of the hose, it's because of sizing or color. And it's not because of the quality. And so if I could pick and choose some of these items that say, well, why aren't they selling? It's across the board. It's a matter of the person going on our website, clicking on every single product, because you're going to open up to some fantastic photography. And it's going to be like, wow. Because when I actually put some type of banner up with a hose that hasn't been selling, all of a sudden sales go crazy because all of a sudden it's like, where'd these come from? Well, they've been on the website for 10 years.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add, like anything that's happening on the site that you want people to pay attention to, any sort of press before we let you go?
Well, we always have our ongoing bulk discount. We always offer the 6 pair at 15%. And you can buy 6 pair, 10 pair, any type of styles. You can group, it doesn't have to be one. We're always going to give you a 15% discount at 6 pairs or more. And a lot of people ask, why don't you have free shipping? It's like, well, when you have that type of discount already in place, and we've had that discount since day one, and that type of discount will actually give you more savings as you buy more compared to $15 free shipping. Because a lot of websites will do free shipping. Yeah, but what if I buy $900 worth, which I do have customers buy thousands of dollars every month.
Wow.
Right?
That would be an expensive.
They would rather have the discount than save $30 in shipping. I don't think there's a website out there that sells cheaper than us for the.
I've noticed that you do have like strikingly low prices, and this is not just because this is not some sort of like behind the scenes promo. Like this is me objectively saying I looked at it and I was just like, wow.
No, I think, and then here's the other things. Well, your prices are the same as that other person's or other websites. That yeah, did you do the Canadian US exchange? And they're like, oh right, yeah. So there's 30% difference there. So you got to do apples and apples with the exchange rate, and that's a lot of customers. Like, oh wow, you are that much cheaper, and you offer 15%.
It's been enlightening as I knew it would be. It's a joy to talk to you, and please forgive the outside look. Right now, rush hour is happening outside of my apartment, so you're going to hear a lot of possibly cars coming by. We'll probably hit you up in the future if you're ever down to do a further discussion. We would love to have you back on. You are a treasure trove of information.
Well, I just want to say it was a pleasure talking with you guys. It was very educated type podcast when I listened to you guys were not.
That's a relief because I was a bit nervous because we do have a lot of our
we can get a little body, but and yeah, like I said, anytime in the future, if you'd like to come back on, we would love to have you. I'm sure there's a myriad of things we can talk to you about. But thank you so much again. And
You're welcome.
Any final words, McSheer?
It's been a real pleasure, and I've been desperate to have a conversation like this since the day I was born.
I hope I gave you a little more insight in the technical aspect of hosiery and something that.
Cheers, Robert.
Thank you.
Welcome. Have a great day.
Bye bye.
Take care.
Bye bye.
You too.